soldier on, man up, grin and bear it. Too often, sentiments such as these reflect how men attend, or rather don't attend, to their health and well-being. That can result in higher risks and more severe outcomes over the long term. And it might go some way to explaining why men's life expectancy is 79, while women's is 4 years longer, 83. So, how to get men to be more mindful of their health? Let's ask Wayne Hartrick. He is president of the Canadian Men's Health Foundation, and it's good to have you in that chair, Wayne. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Let's share just some of the numbers here that you know all too well, and then we'll come back and chat after that. Sheldon, if you would, this graphic. Among men between the ages of 30 and 64, 65% are considered overweight or obese. Almost half are inactive. More than 40% binge drink, and more than a quarter smoke. And then when we take those numbers and compare them to women, Canadian men are 57% more likely to die from diabetes, 79% more likely to die from heart disease, and 40% more likely to die from cancer. Now let's just start with this. Those are the numbers today. How would those numbers compare if you and I were having this conversation, let's say, a quarter century ago?
I don't have those stats in front of me, but I'd say that somewhat less, because there's far more accessibility and use of portable food, fast food, processed food, all these things that are really easy to eat that increase increase our chance of getting overweight.
So you're saying we're worse today then?
As far as you know, we probably would be heading that way. Generally, obesity has been heading that way. Obesity in children is certainly heading that way. Canadian men, as you mentioned, 65% are overweight or obese. That's double the worldwide average of obesity worldwide. But I think you've done a great job of sort of rounding up all the bad news. The good news in all this is that roughly overall, about 70% of these kinds of problems, most chronic conditions, could be eliminated or are reduced by adopting 5 different simple lifestyle factors.
Okay, hold off on that, because we're going to get to the good news in a second. But first of all, we still got to hit them with more bad news.
Sure, okay.
One of the biggest changes, of course, if we're looking at back then versus today, is the internet. There's way too many people leading way too sedentary a lifestyle because they're sitting in front of their computers all the time. And I wonder as well whether that makes a disproportionate effect on men, because they do most of the video gaming as well.
Right.
What's your thought?
Well, I think personally, just speaking from my own personal experience of the people I observe, I think it definitely is a factor. What we try and do is harness the fact that men are online. We know that more than 50% of men default, if they're looking for health information, to looking online. We know guys are looking at weather, they're looking at sports. So we try and intercept them, if you will, during those kinds of moments to get them thinking about maybe putting down one of those bags of chips or being a little bit more active. And that's done through our Don't Change Much campaign, which I know we'll talk about.
Gotcha. One of the reasons, I guess, that men aren't doing as well as women is that men avoid going to the doctor. I mean, I don't want to make vast generalizations, but you hear that all the time.
Yes.
Is that your experience, and if so, how come?
Absolutely. I think there's a number of things that lead into this. Different theories that are out there. Overall, men definitely do go to the doctor less. We tend to go when it's kind of more like the crisis. We really got to go. It's built up that far. Overall, stats show that men go to the doctor about 25% or more less than women. So why? Okay. Well, one of the things is, and I think it plays into the whole factor here about men being less proactive about health, is the whole idea of masculinity. And what does it mean? The masculine norms, You're mentioning off the top about man up, be stoic, be in control. And so a lot of healthy behaviors, like asking for help if you're feeling down, or being proactive about your health, maybe even asking for directions if you're lost, are all seen like signs of weakness.
Yeah, we don't do that.
Who's going to be the guy that orders the salad when everybody else is ordering a burger around him and he gets teased?
I wonder if part of it also is that we don't like getting bad news.
I got part of it too. Yes, absolutely.
Do you have a sense of how many men have never been to a doctor, just don't go at all?
No, I don't. But what we do see is that there's a vast lack of data information on men that we'd normally collect in the healthcare system, because men tend to drop off of seeing doctors, if they see them at all, around 18, 19 years old, because again, they don't have to go and they particularly want to go. And when you're younger, your health generally, based on the research we've done, guys define their health when they're younger as, can I do what I'm going to do today? Am I healthy today? And it's not till you hit 30 or 35 or whatever that you start to think more about, well, my health, maybe it's about my health tomorrow, how am I going to be? So they drop off, and there's this vast gap of information about guys and men and health because they don't go visit doctors, they don't see anybody from 19 till, up to about 30 years old.
Part of it is what you've just said, but I wonder if part of it as well is that in some places in this country, it's hard to find a family doc. Is that part of it?
I think that is a factor as well. We hear all the time from friends and people that I'm connected with that they have a struggle trying to find a family doctor. But also, overall the message here, guys, is that you don't have to see the doctor often. Maybe go see them once a year for a checkup. And I know that going to the doctor feels like bad, oh gosh, I'm getting a stethoscope and a finger up the bum and those kinds of things that I don't make me comfortable. But it's a pretty easy 20-minute checkup. And generally you can find a clinic or somebody who can do that for you. But overall, it's about being aware that there are these problems with our health, and that we, by being proactive, by getting past our own ideas of being masculine and whatnot, and going ahead and having some healthy food, maybe going out and doing some healthy activity.
Well, since you brought it up here, let's circle back to what you said before, because you did say, and I think it's on your website as well, 70%. 70% of men's health problems can be prevented by adopting healthy lifestyles.
Yes.
For example?
Oh, maybe like simple tips and things that you can do. Sure. And you find on our Don't Change Much website, what we've done is we've catered all that to be messaged to guys, because we know, just like women or other groups, if the message is spoken guy to guy and it's delivered in a way in which we deliver it with a bit of humor, we use sports heroes to help deliver it, and we talk about small things that you can do realistically, right? Like, say you need to be a little more active. You're too sedentary. You're spending too much time on the internet. Take transit to work. What about getting off the bus or the transit 2 stops early, walking the rest of the way? You get to the building, maybe take the first 2 or 3 flights up the stairs before you hit the elevator button. For my work, I walk up 4 flights. I'm not exhausted when I get up there. I can handle it. I go at a normal pace. Over the course of a year, I've climbed the height of a jet airliner at 36,000 feet. The cumulative effect can be very important.
I'm just doing a few flights a day.
Absolutely.
Okay,
have
Wayne,
a few glasses of water.
Can I be the killjoy here?
Yeah, absolutely.
No one's going to do that. No one's going to do that. No one's going to get a bus. Guys just won't get off a bus 2 stops early and walk the rest of the way, because they just don't. And no one's going to, look, we're here in a building that's, I don't know how many, it's almost 20 stories tall. And I see people all the time getting on the elevator to go down 1 floor.
Yes.
Guys are lazy. They won't do it. Well, so how do you make them change their behavior?
Part of this is about awareness. And what we find is that while a lot of men are sedentary and resistant to change and that kind of thing, once they're made aware of the ramifications and the fact that they can do small things like take the stairs, a lot of people respond. We've got an email that we send to people. There's 31,000 men signed up to our weekly health tips, across the country. When we survey them, 70% of them have made some small difference in nutrition or activity. So these things can gain traction. Maybe it's not get off the bus early for some people. Maybe for some people it's buy 2 less bags of chips this week, or have 3 drinks that night with a bottle of water instead of 5 drinks. They're just all these small things that add up to big changes later on in your health profile.
There's such little things, but on the other hand, you are almost, in some respects, with some people, trying to knock down a brick wall, getting people to change behavior. Why do we seem to be so stubborn in our unwillingness to give up either crap food that's terrible for us, or a sedentary lifestyle that is also bad for us?
Yes. Well, some of this probably comes imprinted from the way we're brought up, and the socialization of the family we're born into. For example, we just released a news release yesterday on the disproportionate effect that overweight or unhealthy fathers have on creating unhealthy kids, even if the mother is of a normal weight, right? So it could be that it's the environment we're brought up in, because if you're an overweight child, you're probably not going to just grow out of it when you become a teenager just because of your normal development. Right. Most of them keep the weight, and in fact even get worse. So there could be a lot of reasons that come into causing that. As well as this whole idea of, like, I'm a guy and I want to be a part of the group, and the group is, all going to sit around and have a beer, not go out for a walk. But intellectually, we know guys, once they start to hear it, start responding and start doing things.
I must have heard this story 10 years ago when I had an uncomfortable, awkward conversation with somebody about their weight. Yeah, it's going back a decade or so. And the guy said, you know what, I have tried everything, except diet and exercise.
Yes.
Now, you hear this line, I guess.
Yes.
And I mean, we all know that diet and exercise get you to 80% of the way there, or 90% of the way there, and we don't do it.
Yes.
How do you take the first step?
I think the first step is doing anything small. I had a friend on the phone the other day who was really thinking about this. He's carrying extra pounds, like I did when I was 30, and was planning on doing a bunch of research into exactly what kind of program he should get himself onto and what the steps were going to be and how to get into the gym. And I said, hang on. Just when you hang up the phone now, look at what you're going to do next and do something a little bit healthier, just one thing, like go grab a bottle of water instead of the bottle of sugary pop. Take a walk outside around the block and sit down. Anything that you can start incorporating in your daily life. And I think that, shown time and time again, is small habits lead to long-term change, which then lead to better health outcomes.
Can I get a bit personal with you for a second here?
Sure.
You are, I mean, let's show this guy. Look at this guy. You are the portrait of health right now. You're 61 years old. You haven't got an ounce of fat on you. You look in great shape.
Thank you.
You didn't always look this way, right?
No, when I was about 30 years old, I was carrying 25 extra pounds. I hadn't paid much attention to my health. I ran occasionally, and I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
So you quit smoking too, eh?
More than that if I was more than that if I was going to a party. And I had for me, it was a moment of realization. Everybody who has a different point, right? Where I was playing squash with a friend of mine, I was running out of breath, and I thought, whoa, he's the same age as me. He's been my buddy, and now I'm gasping for air. And so that was a realization point, and I gradually started to change my health behaviors, and I started just like I'm talking about. Right? I started by just doing the common sense things, not buying the stuff with the sugar, watching the diet a bit, but not extremely, and getting more active. And now I love it. It just feels normal.
I wonder, now these numbers here are a few years old, but still, I'm sure germane for today. Almost 30% of young boys aged 12 to 17, 30% are either overweight or obese.
Yes.
Do we have a looming obesity crisis if we don't get the message here? I
had the opportunity to talk to leaders of organizations like Heart and Stroke Canada, and Diabetes Canada and Health Canada when we were starting this foundation 4 years ago. And there was a unanimity amongst a number of messages. And one of them was the big fear they had was the looming bulge of childhood obesity coming up the stream. It could be from sedentary lifestyle, could be a number of other things, but it does point to the importance of leadership of parents. And just to go back to the study we did today of fathers and their effect on children, is what's happening is that the studies are showing, done here in Canada and elsewhere, that children tend to mimic the dad's health behaviors, especially the eating. So here you are, you're trying to do everything you can to try and get your kids to do what you're, all these things, trying to persuade them, and yet they're subliminally just following what you eat. So if you start to change some of that, you can have a big impact on these numbers, these obesity numbers that are in children.
But you see this actually with infants as well, where when and okay, mea culpa here, I'm sure I've done this at one point or another as well, where you're trying to get the kid to have some formula and the kid's not interested, and you throw a little apple juice in there and just sugar it right up. And that's establishing, I guess, addiction and bad eating habits for life right there.
Well, I'm not an expert on how to feed children, that's for sure, and I'd certainly leave that to other experts in the area. But I think a lot of this is about frequency, whatever it is in our lives. They've got to moderate everything, and I can't speak for diet in young children, but moderation is the message, and that we need to just be, number one, more aware. And the other thing is we've got to give permission to guys to just go ahead and be healthy. If another little story is just talking to a fellow who works on remote construction sites, largely male, guys working there, heavy equipment, and he wanted to start doing a little bit of jogging, and he's telling me he waited till everybody was at bed at night, and he would quietly run up and down the hallway because it was kind of too embarrassing to be taking the step. We have to give permission for guys to order that salad, or maybe just how about half salad, half fries, or go ahead and have that run and everybody not tease him about it.
Well, because the reality is, if you're going to go to a bar to watch a game with somebody, you're not going to go healthy. You're going to try and see if you can have more beers than the next guy. That tends to be the way. Yeah, that's just not a good idea.
This is exactly why we say, go ahead and have a beer. Yeah. Then have a glass of water, and then have your next beer.
Right.
When you order your burger, how about, instead of all fries, how about half salad? And just break it into small things.
Let's throw some more numbers out here. If the current trends continue, you tell us, by the year 2040, up to 70% of adults aged 40 years or older will be overweight or obese. I mean, the implications of this are really quite astonishing. Your organization recently got some grant money from both the feds and the province to, and here's the quote, help promote lifestyle and behavioral changes for Canadian men.
Yes.
What are you going to do with that money?
Okay, well, first of all, most of the money will go into our Don't Change Much campaign, which is an online resource. And on that online resource are lots of really easy to digest, simple blogs and tips on how to be healthy. We as well as a thing called the U-Check tool, which is designed just for guys, a confidential, simple health survey, gives a snapshot of your current health and your future health, as well as tips of what to do. So we will use the money to be able to get those kinds of online tools in front of, extend the reach to more men. We're also in the process of building an app that will allow us to take the same tools and extend them to another audience. And the third thing I think is really exciting, because both the Ontario government and the federal government have been really a lot of foresight in this, is it allows us to be able to make the message precise. I've talked about the need for men to have messages and marketing directed at them, especially about health, which, not thinking about necessarily. But then within men, we know from research we've done that there's a theory of about 6 different ways in which men think about health. I'm invincible, right? Or I put my health at the bottom of the totem pole because everything else is more important, right? Or I kind of rely on other people to tell me, the nice nagging, that kind of thing. Well, each one of those takes a different kind of messaging. So with this money, we'll be able to more precisely target men to be able to get them to be more involved. And by extension, this helps the whole family.
Well, it's just so obvious that there's an upstream and a downstream way to solve this problem. You can solve it by not getting into bad lifestyle habits in the first place, or you can solve it by putting more money into sickness treatment, and that's way more expensive, obviously.
I once had somebody describe to me the healthcare system with a wonderful analogy, that health was like a river with a waterfall at the side, right? And everybody's kind of standing on the river banks at the side, and as they get more unhealthy, they get closer and closer to the river of bad health and eventually fall in. And as they get sicker and sicker, they go over the edge of the waterfall. The bottom of the waterfall is like the acute care system, which is just completely consumed trying to deal with the people coming down. And they don't have time to get upstream and onto the banks and prevent people from getting sick in the first place. This is where organizations, independent organizations like ourselves, or Prostate Cancer Canada, or Movember, can come in, and we can use money from taxpayers, but as well partner that with money from philanthropists and other sources to be able to increase the impact and operate independently to really innovate to get people, to prevent them from ever falling into the river.
We've got a couple of minutes left here, and I want to ask you just about the philosophy that underpins what you're doing, because some people might think that the approach to take here is you've got to radically change everything you do, and you got to turn over a new leaf, you've got to and your tagline here is don't change much. And I wonder why the approach of sort of going easy as opposed to whacking people on the head and saying, hey, you got to change everything you do.
Because what we know is that whacking people in the head with got to change everything you do just doesn't work very often. Not very often. It's like the New Year's resolution that you don't keep. We had the fortunate ability, because our chairman, Dr. Larry Goldenberg, had wanted to get something started like this and had raised seed money to start it. I got the chance to research with men across Canada. Time and time again, they said, don't ask us to do too much. We're already busy. We're not going to become marathon runners and vegans by tomorrow. right? And so we know that the most effective ratio is with bits and pieces. But when we launched the campaign, I must say that when we first launched it publicly, I was kind of hunkered down with my flak jacket and helmet on, waiting to see if any shots would come from people in traditional healthcare. And you know, very supportive. Lots of messages, people in traditional healthcare saying, this is a good way to go. We got to nudge people along, and nudging them has long-term benefits.
Okay, one more thing, and that is your last name is Hartrick, but I want to ask you about the hat trick.
Certainly.
Because this is a University of British Columbia program, right?
Yes.
A 12-week program, the hat trick program,
yes,
for guys who've got too much gut.
Yes.
So what do you do about that?
Okay, so this is a very interesting pilot program. There's also one being run out here in London, Ontario as well, that's replicating a successful men's health behavior change face-to-face program that was done by the premier football leagues, soccer leagues in Scotland. And what they're doing is they're partnering with minor league teams across Canada, hockey teams, to use the cachet and connection of sports to get guys who are going to watch their local hockey team, who are themselves very unhealthy, ironically, and get them to come into the stadium once a week for 12 weeks, come into the arena, and go through a program of nutrition and activity and other health change. And some of this is, you know, they get swag, the team coach drops in and does a session. It makes it more fun and interesting. And it's very successful in getting men who are, they won't even let guys in who are less than a 38-inch waist, and they have a waiting list. So it's a really interesting pilot project of maybe a way to go with this connection between sports and sports heroes and connection to teams as a way of connecting with guys into an actual day-to-day program.
Gotcha. Okay, that's men's physical health. We're going to ask you to sit tight for a little bit because we want to look at the other side of the equation, which is men's mental health.
Great.
We're going to talk to somebody about that, and then we'll bring you back at the end of the program and we'll sum it all up and put a bow on top, okay?
Wonderful.
Thank you,
Important
Wayne.
topic.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.